I realized something was wrong when my security app sent me a motion alert from my living room. Then another. Then another. I was 3 hours away on a work trip, standing in a quiet hotel hallway when I opened the live feed. My couch was gone, buried under bodies. Strangers holding drinks. Laughter echoing off walls I'd painted myself. Someone leaned against the bookshelf my father built before he died. My name is Rachel Whitman. I own that house. I pay the mortgage alone. And until that moment, I still believed my sister respected that. I called her immediately. Oh, relax. She laughed over loud music. It's my promotion party. Almost 100 people showed up. Can you believe it? In my house, I said. My voice didn't rise.
It dropped. She scoffed.
This night isn't about you. I'm not stopping for anyone. That sentence landed heavier than the noise behind it. I looked again at the screen. Someone spilled a drink on the rug. Another stranger kicked off their shoes like they belonged there. I didn't argue. I didn't warn her. I made one quiet call instead. Then I sat on the edge of the hotel bed, phone in my hand, and watched my house like it no longer belonged to family, but to consequences that were already on their way. The dispatcher didn't sound surprised when I explained. Calm questions. Clear steps. Address confirmed. I gave permission for entry, stated I was the homeowner, and ended the call before my hands could start shaking. Back on the live feed, the party kept swelling. People I'd never met wandered into the hallway. Someone opened my bedroom door. I zoomed in and felt my jaw tighten as a stranger sat on the edge of my bed, laughing into their phone. My sister texted me a selfie from my kitchen. You should be happy for me. I didn't respond. 10 minutes later, the sound changed. Music cut mid-beat. Confusion rippled through the crowd like a bad current. I watched my sister's smile falter as 2 uniformed officers stepped into frame, polite but immovable. She argued first. Big gestures. Laughing it off. Then irritation. Then disbelief. She called me furious. Did you seriously call the police on me? I called to protect my home, I said evenly. You chose the audience. On the screen, people began filing out, clutching coats and half-finished drinks. Someone tripped on the front step. Another apologized to no one in particular. My sister stood frozen in the doorway, watching her night unravel. And for the first time, I saw her realize this wasn't about celebration at all. It was about boundaries she never believed I'd enforce. By the time the house emptied, the damage was impossible to ignore. Footprints ground into the rug. Sticky rings on the dining table. A cracked picture frame leaning crookedly against the wall. My sister paced the living room, phone pressed to her ear, voice sharp as she tried to salvage dignity from the wreckage. This is humiliating, she snapped when she realized I was still on the line. You embarrass me in front of everyone. I watched her step over a broken glass without noticing. You embarrassed yourself, I said. You just did it in my house.
She scoffed.
You've always been jealous. You can't stand when something isn't about you. That one stung, not because it was true, but because it was familiar. Any time I said no, she rewrote it as insecurity. Any boundary became a flaw. An officer approached her, calm, professional. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw the posture change. Her shoulders stiffened. Her voice dropped. She texted me minutes later. You're dead to me. I stared at the message longer than I expected to, because for the first time it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like confirmation. I closed the app, set my phone down, and packed my bag for checkout. Whatever happened next would happen without my participation, and that, I realized, was exactly the point. I drove home the next morning without music. The house smelled wrong when I opened the door. Alcohol, perfume, something burned. I stood in the entryway and let it all register instead of rushing to fix it like I usually did. Broken coaster. Scuffed wall. Mud tracked through the hallway like a careless signature. My sister was sitting on the couch when I walked in, arms crossed, eyes red but dry. She didn't apologize. She didn't even stand. You went too far, she said. Everyone thinks I'm unstable now. I set my bag down slowly. You turned my home into a venue. She laughed bitterly. It was one night. One night. I repeated, looking around, for 100 people I didn't invite. She launched into a speech about her career, about pressure, about how I'd always been too controlling. I listened until she ran out of breath. Then I said something I'd never said to her before. You don't get access to my life just because we're related. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. That was when I understood something quietly devastating. She hadn't crossed a boundary by accident. She'd crossed it because she didn't believe it existed. I didn't ask her to clean up. That surprised her more than anything else. She waited for instructions, a list, a lecture, a chance to perform regret without actually feeling it. When none came, her anger shifted into something thinner. You're really going to hold this over me? She asked. I'm not holding anything, I said. I'm changing how this works. That afternoon, I called my insurance company, filed a report, documented the damage. I sent myself screenshots from the security feed and saved the officer's incident number. Not to punish her, to stop pretending this was normal. When I told her she needed to leave by the end of the week, she laughed. You're bluffing. I shook my head. I'm done. She accused me of betrayal, of jealousy, of ruining her moment. Each word slid off me more easily than the last, like my body had finally learned it didn't have to brace for impact. That night, alone in my bedroom, I scrolled through old photos of us, holidays, birthdays, forced smiles. I didn't feel nostalgia. I felt relief. Because I wasn't losing a sister who respected me. I was letting go of a role I'd been trapped in for years. And the quiet that followed felt earned. She didn't leave quietly. The next few days were a cycle of half-packed bags and full-blown accusations. She told our parents I'd lost my mind. She told friends I'd sabotaged her big night out of spite. A cousin texted to ask why I couldn't just be supportive this once. I didn't reply to any of it. Instead, I changed the locks, scheduled a cleaner, walked through each room with a notepad, listing what could be repaired and what needed replacing. Practical steps steadied me in a way arguing never had. On the third night, she cornered me in the kitchen. You think you're better than me now? She asked, eyes bright, voice shaking. I met her gaze. I think this house is mine. That was when she understood. Not emotionally. She wasn't there yet, but structurally. The power she'd assumed was permanent was, in fact, borrowed. She left the next morning, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I didn't follow. I didn't call after her. I stood in the quiet and listened to my home settle back into itself. For the first time since I'd bought it, the space felt like it belonged to me, not as a backdrop to someone else's life, but as a boundary I was finally willing to defend. The fallout arrived in waves. First my parents, disappointed, careful, asking if I'd overreacted. Then extended family, offering advice I hadn't requested. Everyone spoke in the same language of compromise, as if boundaries were a temporary inconvenience instead of a decision. My sister posted photos from the party anyway.
Cropped.
Edited. A caption about resilience and not letting negativity steal your shine. Friends praised her strength. I muted it all. What I didn't mute was the quiet inside my house. Rooms began to feel like rooms again. I slept without waking to footsteps that weren't mine. I cooked without someone critiquing how much space I took up. The cleaner left the place smelling neutral and new, like a reset button I hadn't known existed. One evening, a neighbor knocked to return a jacket someone had left behind. He apologized, embarrassed.
We didn't know, he said.
If we had. It's okay, I replied and meant it. The night was over. The lesson wasn't. My sister sent one last message. You didn't have to make it this extreme. I stared at the word extreme and finally understood how little she'd ever seen me. Because choosing yourself only looks extreme to people who expected you to disappear. A month later, my house felt different. Not just cleaner, but quieter in a way that reached deeper than sound. I rearranged furniture, took down photos that made me feel small, replaced the rug that had been trampled with one I actually liked. Each change was small, ordinary, and somehow profound. No one argued with me about it. No one overruled me. My sister didn't come back. She told people we were on a break, like boundaries were temporary or negotiable. I didn't correct her. I didn't need to. The distance spoke clearly enough. One evening, sitting on my porch as the sun went down, I replayed that moment, her laugh on the phone, the way she said the night wasn't about me. For a long time, I'd believed that too. That my role was to provide space, money, forgiveness, silence. I see it differently now. Calling the police wasn't revenge. Changing the locks wasn't cruelty. Asking her to leave wasn't abandonment. It was the first time I treated my life like it actually belonged to me. And the strangest part? Once I stopped arguing and started watching, I didn't lose anything real. I gained a home, and myself inside it.